Hi guys, happy Tuesday. I think. Yes, it's Tuesday. The last day of August. Thank the gods. Thank God it's almost September, and therefore we have cooler weather coming in, and it's not so freaking hot. So, did you guys have a good Monday? Anything? Do anything great? No? Nothing? Probably not. Me either. So, right. Writing a stem of Ragwort. So we're going to go back into a little bit more of, basically, I mean, this is kind of tying into the Sabbath, the witch's Sabbath, flying ointments, all the different kinds of, hallucinogens that you can use on, the broomstick and everything, and, but this is Ragwort. So I thought this was really cool, and I thought I would share it with you guys, but I love this. So this is Between the Realms, Cornish Myth and Magic, but it's really, really neat. So this just goes to kind of, show about, the wise women and the cunning men in Cornwall, in that village, and the village is in Cornwall, so it's very, very, very informative. Alright, so here's a little excerpt, which I think is really neat. So this is here. Alright, now in a very small Cornish village in olden times, and the race is not yet extinct, lived a charmer or a white witch. That term is used in Cornish witchcraft. So they were not only able to cure diseases, but they could, when offended, overlook and ill-wish the offender, bringing ill luck to him. Yeah, dual paths, dual faiths. If you can't heal, if you can't curse, you can't heal. That's kind of a motto thing in, traditional craft too. And also on his family and farm stock. So the seventh son of the seventh son, or seventh daughter of the seventh daughter, were born with this gift of charming, and made the most noted pellers. But anyone might have become a witch who had touched a logan. It's a rocking stone, 9 times at midnight. These are, walking around the stones at midnight, standing stones and different things like that. The witching hour, between the worlds. Now these Logan rocks are mentioned elsewhere as being in Cornwall their favorite resorts. And then to them they went, it is said, riding on Ragwort stems instead of traditional broomsticks. So, my broomstick is put away. Anyways, alright, so here in this 19th century account by Margaret Courtney, we have, in a nutshell, the traditional attributes of the Cornish witch or wise woman. So this is basically summing up what we do and how we do it. The healing and cursing qualities of these white witches have been well documented. It has, you can go all the way back, archaeological. There's archaeological evidence of these people. It's very true. So if you're into archaeology, do it. Just study it. It's amazing because you can trace it all back. Unlike Christianity, you can't trace anything back archaeologically with that system. So, alright, so it's a farce to me. Anyways, sorry. Now, so yeah, it's been well documented, and it is not so much their spells, rites, and rituals, or charms, or whatever you want to call it, that are actually connected with here, as their supposed ability to ride between the realms. As Gemma Gary puts it, oh, I love it. Gemma Gary, you are popping up everywhere now. I love you. So she puts it, witchcraft has always been practiced in Cornwall, or at least this is how it would seem. In many ways, the word witchcraft seems to be linked with Cornwall, a remote horn of land, which is home to countless legends of old magic and sorcery, fantastical beings, and many haunted sites which inspire the imagination to ponder the mysteries of midnight going on with witches, and the joyous gatherings of piskies. So it is these mysterious midnight goings on that show the witches to be the inheritors of the shamans and their supernatural abilities to connect with the other world. So, I love Gemma Gary. She's amazing. She really is. But now, witches were thought to have the power over the elements. They could do something called calling the wind, or calling down the wind. You can. So, by which means they could cause or stop a strong storm wind that could affect boats going out to sea or not. Now, at one time, witches used to gather at Boscastle Harbor at sailing times to sell the wind for their money sailors. receiving a string with 3 knots. Undoing the first would bring a breeze to sail by, the second kept a gale behind the ship, and the third was best for the wind that would have to guide them into harbor. And I think that's wonderful, and it is a really powerful thing to do. It's not magic, it's very powerful, and it works. So, and I only say it works, and I believe this to be factual for me because I've seen it. I've seen this happen. Now, at Chapel Idney, or whatever, in Sennen, it was recorded that a local holy woman brought home a west wind to stop the Danes invading, and Magi Figi, one of the most celebrated of the Saint Levan and Barian witches, would control the weather to bring about storms that could cause ships to be wrecked on the coast. So, now witches are traditionally supposed to be able to ride on broomsticks. Now, and in Cornwall, there is a particular local take on that, and they ride on the stems of ragwort, which of course is a very prevalent in the Cornish countryside. And I do really honestly think we have it here in the States too. I mean, growing alongside the road. So, okay, so now where did I go? Now, okay, Magni Figdi was one such witch. She lived in a cottage not far from Rafta, but would frequent a stack of rocks on the coast called Tulpen Penwith, from where she would launch herself into the air on a stem of ragwort. Now, this not be as, fanciful as it sounds. It has been recorded that medieval witches practiced and prepared magical flying ointments. Of course, we know that. From plants such as henbane, belladonna, and mandrake, which are poisonous, so don't do it. All these contain the powerful hallucinogen. Wow. I don't even know what this one is. Hyoscamine, which gives the sensation of flying through the air. These hallucinogenic preparations were smeared on their bodies or applied with something like a feather. The ointment was thus absorbed through the skin, and the hallucination of flying would follow. So broomsticks were everyday objects kept close at hand in most cottages. But if the witches were out of doors and expected to experience the sensation of flying, a nearby stem of ragwort would serve them just as well. What kind of hallucinogenic properties does ragwort have? So the riding of a broomstick or stem of ragwort has about a notion of riding a supernatural steed, and we have already seen from Cornish stories of supernatural encounters that flying horses figure prominently in them. So there are links here with Siberian shamans who rode horse head sticks through the skies or ecstatic trance to the World 3 or cosmic axis. Now, Paul Deverex suggests that the remnant of these traditions is doubtlessly the folk image of the hobby horse. So you guys know what that is, right? I would hope. So he also points out that in Scandinavian mythology, Frigg, the wife of Odin, Freya, the witch on here, so the Scandinavian witch, shout out, you are amazing, was depicted riding on a broomstick. Both Frigg and Freya were different aspects of the same goddess, and Freya was the mistress of first teacher or satyr, a form of trance divination. So this was practiced by the Sedhonka, who in the course of her divination would go into trance and have an out-of-body experience. Now, Freya was said to have owned a magic feather garment that enabled her to fly. So the witches' flights on their stems of ragwort are therefore in a long-lasting tradition of shamanic and hallucinatory magic. So, don't do it though. Don't do it. There's other alternative ways to do it without hallucinogens and without, narcotic plants. Now, a further aspect of the shaman's flight may also have been culturally transmitted from other places, widespread from northwest Europe to Tibet. Shaman's flights are envisaged as an upward ascend by ladder to the other world. Sometimes the ladder was placed symbolically against a real tree or a post, and the shaman would ascend by flapping his or her arms like a bird. Don't do this, you guys. This is history. This is literally history. Now, sometimes notches would be cut on a post so the shaman could physically climb it. It is perhaps the relevant where Magni Friggi climbed to launch herself on her stem of ragwort. was a chair ladder. So this was a pile of cubical masses of granite piled on top of each other, with horizontal joints representing steps in the ladder. So, Magni Friggy's chair ladder was an actual rock formation at Penwith, and can still be found and seen there today. That would be beautiful to see, to actually see what people are, what they're talking about in here, and to travel to Cornwall would be just incredible. So that the flying on broomsticks or ragwort was a hallucinatory experience. So it is further evidenced by the ability of the witch to change into animal form from at the same time. So yeah, you don't need any of those though to actually experience that. You don't need any of that. I don't. I do not at all. It's been too long. I've been doing this forever. So it's like, no, you don't need any kind of hallucinogens, nothing to actually, take off in flight at all. Now, where'd I go? No. So in many trance states, turning into an animal is a very real and powerful experience, and it is like if you take acid, which I do not recommend to anybody. A lot of weird things happen, so it's kind of in this sense. So, where did I go? So such shape-shifting experiences have been universally recorded in many cultures, and by the ingestion of many psychotropic substances. Animals experienced in this way include foxes, hares, cats, and wolves, known as lycanthropy. Now, in one medieval report, 7 male and female witches confessed to rubbing ointment on their bodies and putting on wolf skins and going on all fours and running about the country, in an experiment in the 1960s. Now, a psychologist, Claudio Naranjo, took the psychoactive substance harmaline and became a huge bird, a fish, and then a tiger. So he said, I walked, feeling the same freedom of movement, flexibility, grace. I moved as a tiger in the jungle, joyously feeling the ground under my feet. Feeling my power, my chest grew larger, and then experienced what a tiger feels when looking at its prey. I mean, these experiences are so incredible. I mean, they are beautiful experiences, and I love that we actually have them, but I would not, ingest any of this stuff. Not today. So, I mean, it's very, very interesting. I love that. Now, in some of the Cornish tales, witches turned into their familiars, especially hares and cats. Now, in the tale of the Witch of Treva, there lived a wonderful old lady, deeply skilled in necromancy. Now, one day her husband got into a rage because there was no food in the house. So she turned into a hare and ran all the way to St. Ives, 5 miles distant, and quickly returned with the food. Now, at her funeral, some years later, hares and cats were seen leaping over and sitting on her coffin. And that is, I mean, the connection to the earth. It's really what we're getting here. Really what we're getting here. And ourselves. So now, in the tale of the Witch of Carow, the protagonist, Sir Rose Price, goes hunting a hare that always escapes from him. One day, the hare is shot but not killed. But when the hunters follow it into a house, they see instead of the hare an old woman bleeding about her head and face. She is a shape-shifting witch and is accompanied by her familiar, a large black cat with eyes like coals of fire. Oh, that's cute. Showing his teeth as if to spring at the intruders. Now, in a tale of the magician, the spirit of a murdered woman turns into a hare and follows Pengersack around. It's so interesting. It's just so much folklore. You can learn so much through folklore. Now, in another tale, a witch turns herself into a toad. An old woman called Alzey lived in Anthony, near the river Tamar. But when the landlord came for his rent, she cursed his wife and all he owned. Back at his shop, an enormous toad fell heavily from the ceiling, which the man then threw into the fire almost immediately. Word reached him that Alsley had been severely burnt in a house fire. That's a little creepy. Because we can take on the attributes and injuries of our familiars if we're not careful. Now, the dying toad in the fire is then thrown out into the garden where it dies overnight, as indeed also does Alsley. Wow. When it was examined in the morning, it was found that all injuries sustained by the toad corresponded with those received by the poor witch. Wow. Now, in all these stories, the animal in which the witch has turned is viewed as being devilish or evil, of course. But this is, of course, is only a later Christianization of the memory of pagan practices that involve shape-shifting in altered states of consciousness. Now, in German tradition, toads were thought of living in the plant hemlock, a very poisonous substance that was nevertheless sacred to the goddess Hecate, and have strong hallucinogenic properties. Now, some toads themselves also have substances on their skin that have very hallucinogenic effects. You guys remember that, the episode of, what was it, Family Guy? Family Guy, is it? Where he would, the kid was licking toads? Yeah, so, now in 1991, it was reported in Vancouver that people were picking the creatures up and licking the buffetenin off their bodies to experience psychedelic trips. Ooh, I couldn't lick a toad. I mean, I love toads and frogs, but ooh. But, yeah, toads do play a large part in many Cornish charms, and their presumed power to kill or cure may be a memory of time when witches were able to enter into the essence of the toad itself. So this is just, these are outlets of power. So these are, avenues of power, what do I want to say? The stream of consciousness that is surrounding the toad and these animals. So, alright, now this chapter actually began with an account of how to become a witch, so it is perhaps only fitting that we should end it with another account of how to become a witch that involves the inversion of Christianity, the invoking of Celtic magic numbers and directions, and the presence of a toad. Once again, in Margaret Courtney, who has the details. Now, here's another excerpt. I love these. So, alright, go to the chancel of a church to sacrament. Hide away the bread from the hands of a priest at midnight. Carry it around the church from south to north, crossing east 3 times. The 3rd time, a big toad, open-mouthed, will be met. Put the bread in it. As soon as swallowed, he will breathe 3 times upon the man, and from that time he will become a witch, known by 5 black spots, diagonally placed under the tongue. I don't know how true this is, but it's interesting enough to, hear this. So, toads, hares, cats, and other animals were not only familiars for Cornish witch or wise women, they were part of the altered states of consciousness reached by those who could attain visionary experiences of the other world. Now, a group of people who came from the same mold as the shamans on their psychedelic flights. The Cornish witch on her stem of Ragwort has been a long trip that leads back to the dawn of humanity. So, that is really interesting, and you can find a lot of this in Cornish Feasts and Folklore and The Black Toad by Gemma Gary and Margaret Courtney, Cornish Feasts and Folklore. So it's just amazing what we can actually do. What we do when we can leave our bodies and experience this kind of freedom. So it's very, very wonderful, I think. A very wonderful thing to experience, and to, every witch should experience that type of thing, and, it just goes to show, and, it's been from the dawn of time. So that has to say something a little bit about witchcraft right there, especially traditional craft. So, but, alright guys, I hope you guys have a great day. No, it's only Tuesday. I was going to wish you guys a happy Witchy Wednesday, but it's not Witchy Wednesday. So, I will see you guys tomorrow. Everybody please be safe, stay safe, stay healthy, all that good stuff. Don't be peacing out on me. And yes, I love you guys with all my heart, all the way from Venus. Always, all the way back down. There we go. Alright, I love you guys. Thank you guys for all your comments. I promise I will do a video on just comments. That's coming up. So I love you guys, and I will see you all tomorrow.